Picking up where I left off. God is about to bless his children. This is part 6. As he prepares to bless his children, the spirit of Jezzy, I like to call her, always comes in either just before you receive the blessing or just after, because she mad. Can't stop it. So they try to attempt to destroy it. I had a near-death experience when I was in New York. I was in one of the darkest parts of the season that I walked through. But the Lord tested me just before that. I went to a place he told me to go at a specific time he told me to get there. He made me sit there for 3 hours. I watched the sunset that night. And as I was watching, somebody went into a seizure. I witnessed them go into a seizure. Had I not been standing where I was standing at the time in which I was watching the sunset, I would not have been able to turn my head and see this individual laying on the ground having a daggone seizure. I was able to run and gather somebody to come and at least try to help them. Now, this individual, I could already tell once the paramedics got there and they tried to help the individual, once that person came back to their senses, that they were dealing with something mentally. Because they said, I don't want any help. And he was an older gentleman. And I believe that he had been homeless at that time. But what is my point? After I did that, in obedience to the Lord, I had a near-death experience. Satan ain't playing in this season. He wants to kill you. A lot of you have been desiring, why am I still here, haven't been dismissed from this season? Because Satan is looking to and fro whom in which he can devour. And in this season, anything that ain't covered by God, he's snatching up like he gonna steal it, kill it, and destroy it, okay? He can't kill you, but that don't mean he ain't gonna try. I was thrown from an escalator. I may have told you this before. At 10 feet. It is only the grace of God I landed in such a way, because had I landed any different, my neck would have been broken. I would not be sitting here today. I landed on my shoulder, which turned it in a specific direction. Hurt like heck. But I no longer had to deal with the situation that I was in, because within a week of that, a woman came to me. And she was in a similar situation, and she led me to a place, which I stayed in for another month to recuperate until he moved me somewhere else. What the enemy doesn't want is for you to even get that level of help. Pay attention. Because the level of help that is coming to you, for some of you, is going to be on a different level than you are used to. So he must try to destroy you before you elevate to that degree. He must try to destroy the leaders that God is putting in place. Now let's come back to Darren again. Darren was exposed that day before the woman that he was interested in, before all of these kinds of things. And I'm going to say this right here, and I hate having to say it. Some of your spouses may get publicly humiliated after you come into the picture. Why? Because the enemy sees that if he doesn't try to stop that individual, before y'all really hit traction in movement. And it's going to be petty or something stupid. But if he puts it out there, it could be just something a little small. But the way people grab a small thing and run with it. Because this person felt like it was necessary. Remember them ministry mafia people. Well, I felt this in my spirit that the Lord was telling me I had to tell you this. And you know that person ain't never get nothing from the Lord because of the way that they told it. It was just on my spirit. God wouldn't let me rest until I said this. And the thing that follows out their mouth after that. You know it. But take a platform like this. And somebody come up and say something like that. They followers gonna go and look, see, and attack. Which brings me back to the scripture. Oh, you thought I wasn't coming back to the scripture? I'll come back to the scripture. Oh, hold up. So what happened in the scripture was they had already blocked up the aqueduct leading into the castle, right? So what followed was Hezekiah didn't even go out there to address. So let me tell you something. Thank you, Jillian Whitaker, for giving me this. Jillian Whitaker did a broadcast called talking about the top 3 things that you should never do as a king or queen when these types of attacks come. Don't come off the wall. Hezekiah didn't even go down there to address the people that were coming to attack. He sent, what's the name of this dude's name? He sent somebody down there. Because they were saying, oh, come down here. We at your waterway. And he sent this guy. What is his name? Jesus, where's the name at? Shebina, the court secretary. And Joseph, son of Alfred, the royal historian. He said the secretary and the historian down there. Some people want you to come down. And they will feel thoroughly offended that you didn't even bring nobody that they felt was worthy of their attention. But you brought somebody that had the history. Some of y'all have the ability that you can judicially argue a point down like a lawyer. That's like sending a lawyer and a secretary. Because a historian is going to give you accurate facts. Because they're a fact checker. They're the watchmen. But a lot of people ain't even going to fact check. If they hear somebody, especially if it's a popular enough to them, they're either going to go and observe, but they're not going to check for fact. Okay? A series of threats were then to follow. Okay? So, what did Paula do after that? She said, well, y'all, this, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, now he legally can't stay in the choir as a choir director. And since he has a job now, he can leave. Which is all she really wanted in the first place. She was vying for that position the whole time. So what the messenger does, that's for the Azariah army, literally starts spitfiring a ton of questions towards the king and his servants. The Azaran king's chief start bringing a bunch of stuff up, because it's an attack it's meant to cripple you. If somebody's spitfiring 30 questions at you simultaneously without the ability to even give you time to answer in each one individually, it makes you look bad, doesn't it? Because that's the way the enemy works. When he can't win, he'll bring a bunch of confusion in by having a bunch of questions. And because you couldn't answer them fast enough, the people that are observing you, which brings me to, it's an actual form of this. I forget what they call it. But people will stand up when they see somebody stand up for them. But if they don't feel that the individual or operating in a level of fear, they'll stay sitting down. So if your leader comes under questioning, and due to the fact of how fast the questions came up, what's that going to do to the people? The leader attacked, the flock flee. Now, what Darren did was he promised everybody they were going to get some money out of that prize money. Now, remember, he was still a smooth talker and a liar. Pathological liar. He was operating what he knew to do. He didn't know no better because he was still operating in his past ways. There are people that have come to God and God has given them a mantle and they had to stumble their way through it. Hezekiah messed up. What gives you the right as a human being to not address the fact that that's still a human being? One of the ministers that I follow, pastored for years of a church in Atlanta, literally said this. Why are we not praying for these leaders? Instead, I don't know how many times I've seen this. Of course, the person's new in the position. They need prayer. They don't need you to sit up there and say, well, he did this wrong. Look at this. Well, they were doing this before they came into ministry. Moses killed somebody. David committed adultery, killed somebody, nearly had a baby with the person that he had killed. A woman, was it Tamar? It was one of them women, because I think it was a secondary Tamar. I can't think of what that woman's name is. That she slept with the guy and had his children, and she said that she would bring back a robe or something in relation to the man. But all these kinds of things, people, leaders, all these people commit and have committed issues. Do they need to be sat down? At the end of the day, it's between the Lord and them. There are common points when the Lord will pull an individual out, because he's probably been sitting there tapping that individual over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Guarantee you he's done so. Some people will ask in the midst of their iniquities. Go ahead and read Romans 7, the whole daggone chapter of all the sins that people commit. All of them. But when you're in the process of learning your way through certain things, the enemy gonna pick that one time way back when you were early in your walk and say, see, they did that. See, they were hanging around them, and guilt by association runs rampant. Oh my God, da, 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 da. Oh, you guilty by association. You was hanging out with them. Because he can't get nothing on you. So because he can't get nothing on you, he gon' associate you with somebody that got something. And then spitfire a bunch of questions that you can't answer, and then cause your people to start questioning you too. Is that called the spirit of confusion? Because he don't get nothing new. So he goes into conflict and confusion. Why? Enemy's bitter. He sees you progressing. He sees that he no longer has any way of being able to cause there to be peace. Or shall I say, not peace, but destruction in your life. So he wants to do one final attack to make sure he takes your feet out from under you. Everybody has been fully aware of what happened. He ended up being there and got completely embarrassed. He didn't have no choice. He had nothing else to stay for, so he ended up going right back. I'm going to say this to you right now. In some of y'all cases, there's going to be a point in time, and I kind of mentioned this in the word that I did on Husband for Christmas or something like that, that there's going to be a point in which a choice needs to be made. Is it the last chapter? It's one of the early chapters in the book, God, hold on, is your matchmaker. He talks about the fact that there was a point in time where he had come to meet his wife. They had gone through all of this. They went through healing, and a situation occurred where he had the opportunity to choose the pastoral route that he had been operating in, even went through the whole process of pastorally, should he stay in a relationship with this woman or not. Completely dismissed her, which also to me shows the ministry mafia element of this whole thing. That the ministry can choose who you marry? What the hell? Anyway, he ended up coming back and giving her the letter that he wasn't going to stay with her. But she went into prayer after she left him and explained her side of the story, that she went into prayer to God about the situation. He ended up coming back to her, I don't know, within a matter of months. They went all the way up to the prayer mountain and prayed together and came to the realization that they were just going to do it and get married. The enemy comes in to breed confusion, but will cause you to question, is this where I want to be? And some of you may deal with that before you get married or after you get married. You've been in it for a little bit of time. Why? Because the enemy needs to try to split and sever you from your partnerships, from the associations that you have made, because the enemy sees. Remember, Hezekiah in chapter 18 had not done anything wrong in the beginning. He was breaking down the idols. You think they're going to sit there and watch you start breaking down idols that belong to him, and then try to come in and start breaking that stuff up by trying to use messaging to breed confusion in the act? He came back 3 times to breed a bunch of questions, to stir up confusion amongst that camp of Hezekiah, because they wanted to pull him out of position. Stripped him of everything he had. But the word says, Proverbs 6:31, the enemy got caught stealing, had to pay back sevenfold everything he stole, even from his own house. So, with that being said, let's bring it back to the movie. Darren goes back to his city and he got all his stuff back. They brought his stuff back. He got his accounts back. His money is no longer frozen. Everything is good. And he's sitting up there thinking about what he left behind. In some cases, it will be a scenario, okay, that will cause the individual that when they are introduced to a different way, different living, and different observation, that they'll want to change. God needed, and I'm putting this, inserting this right here, when it comes to your God ordained spouse, God needed to put them in absolute havoc and then let them see peace. How peace lied within you, how peace was around you. Some of you have been wondering why it's taking so long for your season to end and why this individual has not come towards you. Because the Lord showed me this. If an individual is about to have something amputated off their body, leg, arm, anywhere, if you are on a battlefield, there's a couple different ways this can happen. Individual have a straight cut and it's immediately just taken off. But they could die of shock from an artery being cut off like that. There are many people that were meant to be leaders, many people that were meant to. But the enemy's first attack is to come against the mind. But his promises in the word that he gives you power over that attack, love in your heart, and a soundness of mind to understand what is happening to you. Okay? Because he needs to take you out. The strongest attack against children of God is doubt against the mind. There are people, places, and scenarios that your spouses were involved in previous life, previous experiences that were toxic to their health and were literally killing them. When a person has to have a body part amputated, it's because the poison of whatever happened in that injury, infection, bacteria, you hear me? Need to be cut off before it has the ability to get in the rest of the bloodstream. But it needs to be taken off properly. And sometimes, in some cases, if it's not taken off in a certain manner with an acute sensitivity, that person gonna go into shock and die. Some of us have desired for these individuals, well, why can't you just take these individuals out of this individual's life? Or why can't you just do this, that, and the other? Why can't you just make sure that everything will be... Because this person had an entire life before you walked into it. When were you think you just gonna he gonna be just cutting things off like that? What is wrong with you? That person could go into shock with all the levels of revelation that God would have to bring to them in an expedient way. But he had to take the time, delay the process in order to acutely cut, clean, and heal that wound so it didn't atrophy and cause a bunch of other problems in that person. So that they could be fully healed, fully set free, and would not go back. Because guess what? When Darren went back, all he longed for was to go back to where he had just came from. He had all his stuff back. He had everything that he would have wanted. And what happened? He's standing there doing a new presentation before the board of the same people that he had done it before. And the only thing he could think about was where he just came from. Some of your spouses had to go through that so that when the atrophy happened, they be fully, completely healed. The losses that they took in that season was not going to hurt them as badly as if God just cut it off when it first happened. Because it's a potential they would have went back. When you lose an arm, a leg, or this or that, you don't want that back, don't you? But when you have fullness of understanding that this thing needed to be cut off, it may be a journey in no longer having it anymore. But guess what? You come to the realization, I don't need it. Am I making sense? He had to come to the realization he didn't need that lifestyle anymore to even desire to want to come back. You hear me? Am I making sense? I hope I am. We're going to come back for the next part, which should be the last.